Have you ever hoped that if you just gave enough love, you'd receive it back in full measure? But sometimes, what you get back is a slap in the face from the very person you love most. My name is Helen. I'm 65 years old, and even now, I'm haunted by the phone call I received from my daughter Sarah that evening. I had just made myself a cup of tea and was sitting in my small kitchen, the same place where I'd cooked countless meals for Sarah since she was a child. After 30 years of back-breaking work at the factory, I had finally reached retirement age. My plan was simple: move to the city to be closer to her. Just seeing her living well each day was the only thing I looked forward to. I had it all figured out: sell this house, find a small apartment near Sarah's place, and spend my final years close to family. I pictured us taking walks, sipping coffee, or just sitting and talking, sharing secrets like we used to. But then the phone rang, and everything seemed to crumble. I saw Sarah's name on the screen, and my heart leaped. It had been a while since she'd called, so I thought maybe she missed me, or perhaps wanted to invite me up for a visit. I picked up, my voice cheerful. "Sarah, honey, how are you?" But her voice on the other end was cold, devoid of any warmth. "Mom, I need to talk to you seriously." I sank onto a chair, the teacup still in my hand, a knot forming in my stomach. Something wasn't right. Sarah got straight to the point. "Mom, you're getting older. Living alone in that big house isn't safe anymore. What if you fall or have a stroke? You don't even have insurance to cover things if something happens. I've signed you up for a nursing home in town. Someone will come next Wednesday to help you pack." I was frozen. Sarah's voice echoed in my ears, sounding like an order. My hand trembled, but I tried to keep my voice steady. "Sarah, I was planning to move to the city to be near you. I don't want to go to a nursing home. I can still take care of myself." But she cut me off, her voice firmer now. "Mom, this is the best way for both of us. You can't manage on your own forever. I've arranged everything." I wanted to say something, to ask why she hadn't discussed this with me first, but the words caught in my throat. All I heard was Sarah's sigh, as if she was annoyed at having to explain. I sat there, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening as Sarah went on about how keeping the house was unreasonable now that I was old and alone. She spoke as if I were an object that needed to be tidied away, forgotten. I didn't argue. I didn't want to bother her. For so many years I had grown accustomed to sacrificing, and Sarah had always been my priority. She had already suffered enough, losing her father so young. Johnny, my husband, passed away 20 years ago. I raised Sarah alone. I worked night shifts at the factory, standing for hours on the assembly line, my legs aching constantly, just so she could have money for school, nice clothes, so she wouldn't feel less than her peers. I remember the nights Sarah cried for her dad. I pushed down my own grief, held her close, sang lullabies and comforted her. I did everything for her. And now she was telling me I should go to a nursing home, as if I were nothing but a burden. The call ended quickly. "I'll call you later, Mom. Get your things ready," Sarah said, then hung up. I don't know how long I sat there in the kitchen, the tea long gone cold. I looked around the room. The wooden table Johnny had built himself, the cupboard Sarah and I had repainted together when she was little. Everything in this house held memories, my sweat and tears. But Sarah didn't see that. To her, this house was just something to be sold, and I was a problem to be dealt with quickly. I stood up, my steps heavy, and walked to the bookshelf in the living room. There sat our family photo. Me, Johnny, and Sarah when she was just 3, beaming in the park. I touched the picture, my fingers tracing Sarah's face. She used to be my whole world. I remembered her wrapping her little arms around my neck, saying, "Mommy, you're my hero." Now, her words felt like a cruel joke. I wondered what had changed. Had I done something wrong? Was I not good enough for her to want me in her life? Since my husband died, my hands had become calloused, my legs weaker from work. But looking at Sarah's awards and graduation photos on the wall always made me feel both choked up and incredibly strong, knowing I'd given her a good life. I sank onto the sofa, gazing at the pictures of the only person I truly loved, the one I had dedicated my life to, who had now turned her back on me. I told myself I had to be strong. I didn't want her to worry too much. If she thought the nursing home was best, I would go along with it. I started thinking about packing, about what I would take and what I would leave behind. But I couldn't stop thinking about that call. Sarah's cold voice suffocated me. The way she called me old, the way she spoke of this house as if it held no meaning from her childhood, the place she was born and raised, the place filled with love and happiness. I used to think that as long as she was happy, it didn't matter how I lived. And what did I receive in return? A one-way ticket to a nursing home. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. I thought about Johnny, about the days when we were young, a happy family. He always said I was the strongest person he knew, but that night, I didn't feel strong at all. I felt like an old tree, abandoned and left to wither. I clutched the family photo, whispering to Johnny, though I knew he couldn't hear. Did I do something wrong, my love? Why would she do this to me? I had no answers, but I knew one thing. That phone call had changed everything. It didn't just take away my dream of being near my daughter, it also took a piece of my heart. I didn't know how I would face the coming days, but I knew I had to keep going. Because that's what I'd always done. Keep going, even with a broken heart. The following Wednesday, an employee from the nursing home arrived to help me pack the few remaining belongings. I only took a few sets of clothes, some books, and the family photo of me, Johnny, and Sarah. The house, filled with memories, the place where I raised her, now felt like an empty shell. I didn't look back as the car drove me away. I was afraid if I did, I wouldn't have the strength to move forward. The nursing home was on the outskirts of town, a low building surrounded by neatly trimmed lawns. They showed me to a small room with a bed, a table, and a window overlooking the grass. I unpacked my things, placing the family photo on the table, but every time I glanced at it, a sharp pain shot through my chest. Sarah still hadn't called, even though it had been over a week since that conversation. I told myself she must be busy, but deep down, I couldn't accept the truth that she didn't want to contact me. Life in the nursing home began slowly. Each day felt exactly the same. In the morning, I'd have breakfast with the others in the dining hall, oatmeal or toast with butter. Then came activities like checkers, watching TV, or listening to someone tell stories. I tried to join in, tried to smile when Rose, a new acquaintance, talked about her grandchildren. But honestly, I felt like I didn't belong here. I often sat alone in a corner staring at my phone, waiting for a message, a call from Sarah, but the screen always remained dark. I couldn't blame anyone. The people here were kind and the nurses were attentive, but every night, lying in bed, I felt utterly alone. I missed my kitchen, the sound of Sarah's laughter when she was little, the days Johnny and I sat on the sofa dreaming about the future. Now, it was all just memory, and I didn't know if I had any value left. I had spent my entire life caring for Sarah, sacrificing everything, and now here I was, alone in this strange room. Then, one day, I met Marilyn. She was a nurse at the home, young, with her hair tied back, always wearing a warm smile. The first time she brought hot tea to my room, I was sitting by the window, lost in thought. "Mrs. Helen, have some tea to warm you up," she said, placing the cup on the table. I was surprised no one else here called me by my first name. I thanked her but said nothing more. I wasn't used to talking to strangers anymore. But Marilyn didn't give up. She often stopped by, sometimes with cookies, sometimes asking about my life before the home. One afternoon, she stayed longer than usual. "You know, I used to visit your house sometimes," she said, her eyes lighting up. I was taken aback, unsure what she meant. Then she explained she had been close friends with Sarah in high school. She remembered my kitchen, the chocolate chip cookies I used to bake for them. Sarah used to boast that her mom made the best cookies in town, Marilyn chuckled. A small warmth spread through me, but it was quickly followed by a pang of pain. The Sarah of yesterday, the girl who used to be proud of me, where was she now? Marilyn shared more memories of those days, how she and Sarah would sit in my living room, listening to music and talking about their dreams. She said she recognized me the moment she saw me at the home, despite the years. "You look just the same, only your hair is grayer," she joked. I managed a small smile. the first real one since I'd arrived. But talking about Sarah only reminded me that she hadn't called, hadn't visited, hadn't shown any concern. Marilyn seemed to sense this. She didn't push me to talk about Sarah, instead shifting the conversation to her job, why she chose nursing. "I like it here, being close to genuine people," she said. Her words were simple but touched my heart. I reached out and took her hand. "You're the first person who's made me feel like I still have some value here," I said, my voice trembling. I turned away so she wouldn't see the tears welling in my eyes. I didn't want to cry, didn't want to seem weak, but Marilyn had made me feel less invisible. I looked at her, thinking of Sarah, of how she had distanced herself, not just physically, but emotionally. "You're lucky, Marilyn," I said softly. "You know what you want and you live for it. As for me, I just wanted to be near my daughter. But perhaps that's something I'll never have." In the following days, Marilyn became a bright spot in my life. She brought tea regularly, sometimes a book to read aloud. I started opening up, telling her about Johnny, about my years at the factory, about how I tried to give Sarah a better life. Marilyn listened patiently, never judging, always calm. She reminded me that I had once been strong, a mother willing to do anything for her child. But even with Marilyn's kindness, I couldn't stop thinking about Sarah. Every time my phone vibrated, I jumped, hoping it was her. But it was always just a bank notification or a missed call from an unknown number. I kept the family photo on my table, but each glance brought the same questions. Did she miss me? Did she remember anything I'd done for her? Or was I just an old woman who needed to be forgotten so I wouldn't interfere with her life? It had been over 3 months since I moved into the nursing home, and Sarah still hadn't called. I kept waiting, kept hoping. Marilyn, the young nurse, had become my only friend here, but no matter how hard she tried, I still felt an emptiness inside. You might think I had hit rock bottom then, but no, not until I learned that to Sarah, I wasn't even considered family anymore. One afternoon, Marilyn walked into my room, phone in hand, her expression hesitant. "Mrs. Helen, I need to show you something," she said, as if afraid to startle me. I was sitting in my chair, holding the cup of tea she'd brought earlier, now cold. I looked at her, puzzled. Marilyn held out her phone. The screen glowed with a picture. It was Sarah, my daughter, beaming, holding up a hand adorned with a sparkling diamond ring. Beside her stood a stranger, a young, well-dressed man. Below the photo, the caption read, "Starting a happy journey." I read it again and again, my heart feeling like it had stopped. Sarah was getting married, and I, her mother, had no idea. I gripped the teacup, trying to keep my hand from shaking. "Marilyn, this. Where did you get this?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Marilyn sighed, sitting down beside me. "I saw it on Sarah's Instagram. We still follow each other, though we don't talk much anymore." She explained that Sarah was living comfortably in the city, preparing to marry a young millionaire. The wedding was less than 2 weeks away. I listened, feeling numb, like I was detached from my own body. Not only had she not called or visited, but she hadn't told me about one of the most important days of her life. It felt like a direct slap in the face. I stared at the photo on Marilyn's phone, at Sarah's smile. She looked happy, but that smile wasn't meant for me. She was getting married, and I found out through Instagram, on someone else's phone. Marilyn placed a hand on my shoulder, her voice gentle. "Mrs. Helen, are you all right?" I didn't answer immediately. I just felt a sharp pain in my chest, as if someone were squeezing my heart. "I need to call her. Can I borrow your phone?" I whispered. Marilyn nodded and handed it to me. I didn't want to use mine. I suspected Sarah wouldn't even pick up if she saw my number. I dialed Sarah's number, my hand shaking so much I almost dropped the phone. It rang for a long time before she answered. Sarah's voice came through, tinged with annoyance. "What is it? Why are you calling at this hour?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm. "Sarah, it's Mom. I just saw your post. You're getting married? Why didn't you tell me?" I waited, hoping for an explanation, an apology, anything to make me feel like I was still her mother. But Sarah's voice was ice cold. "Mom, you're old, retired, you have no value anymore. Dad is dead. I don't want to have to explain you, someone living in a nursing home, to my husband's family. I froze, unable to believe my ears. She continued, as if reciting a prepared speech. If you want to come to the wedding, fine, but please sit in the back row and leave early. Oh, and if you love me, transfer your allowance and pension to me. Consider it my dowry. You don't need money living in the home anyway. I couldn't speak. Sarah's words were like knives twisting in my heart, cutting deeper with each syllable. I had raised her, sacrificed my entire life for her, and now she called me worthless? She wanted me to pretend I didn't exist on her wedding day, and even wanted my last pennies. I gripped the phone tightly, but I didn't cry. I wouldn't let her hear my weakness. I understand, I said, my voice flat, and then I hung up. Marilyn was still sitting there, her eyes red. She must have heard everything. Mrs. Helen, she began, but I raised a hand to stop her. Don't, Marilyn. Don't say anything. I stood up, walked to the table, and looked at the family photo. The Sarah in the picture, the smiling 3-year-old, seemed like a stranger now. I didn't recognize her anymore. I didn't recognize myself, the mother who had done everything to make her happy, only to receive those words in return. I sat down on the bed, clutching my chest. Marilyn came over and put her arms around me. I didn't push her away, but I didn't cry either. I just felt hollow, as if a part of me had died. I've truly lost her, I whispered, more to myself than to anyone. Marilyn held my shoulder tightly. She said nothing, knowing no words could soothe this wound. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying Sarah's call, her words echoing in my mind. Something inside me had shattered. I remembered Sarah as a little girl, running into the kitchen, hugging me, saying, "Mommy, when I grow up, I'll take care of you." I had smiled then, ruffled her hair, believing her promise was sincere, and this was how she took care of me? Had I spoiled her too much? Let her think I wasn't important? No matter how I turned it over, I couldn't find an answer. I only knew one thing. Sarah, the daughter I loved more than myself, had chosen to push me out of her life. After that call with Sarah, I wasn't the same. Her words, "You have no value anymore," echoed relentlessly in my mind, a cruel refrain I couldn't silence. I walked over to the table and opened the drawer. Inside was a bundle of letters Sarah had written to me from college. I used to treasure them, rereading them whenever I missed her. I pulled one out, the paper yellowed with age. "Dearest Mom," Sarah had written, "I know how much you've sacrificed. I promise I'll make you proud." I read the lines, my hands trembling. Those words now felt like a twisted joke. I wondered, where was the Sarah of yesterday? What had changed her so drastically? The girl who had loved me, needed me, was now a stranger, willing to deny me so her new family wouldn't know her mother lived in a nursing home. I folded the letter, unable to read further. I was afraid if I did, I wouldn't be able to bear it. The next morning I tried to act normal. I went down to the dining hall and sat with Rose, the elderly friend I'd made. But that day she looked at me closely and asked, "Helen, are you all right? You look like you've lost your soul." I wanted to tell her the truth about Sarah, about the pain tearing me apart, but I just shook my head and forced a smile. "I'm fine, just a bit tired, old age, you know." Rose didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes. She took my hand and said softly, "My own son abandoned me once. Sometimes, children don't see the depth of a parent's love until it's too late." Her words were like another stab. Yet they also made me think, did Sarah truly not see everything I had done for her? I returned to my room and sat alone. Marilyn stopped by, bringing tea as usual. I knew she was worried, but I didn't want her to see me vulnerable. "Mrs. Helen, is there anything I can do for you?" she asked gently. I shook my head. "Just let me be alone for a while." Marilyn nodded and left, but her eyes were filled with concern. I knew she wanted to help, but no one could help me now. This pain was mine alone, and I had to face it myself. I started to doubt myself. I remembered the times I skipped meals to buy books for Sarah, The nights I stayed awake worrying when she was sick. I had done everything for her, but now I questioned. Did I deserve to be treated like this? Did I deserve to be called worthless by my own daughter? I picked up the family photo, looking at Johnny's face. I felt like a failure, a mother who couldn't hold on to her child's love. I thought again about that phone call, the memory searing itself into my mind, when Sarah demanded my pension, as if it were her birthright. I had wanted to scream, to ask how she dared ask for anything after what she'd said, but I couldn't. I just hung up, letting the pain consume me. I didn't leave my room all day. I claimed fatigue and skipped the activities. I sat in my chair, staring at the photo, then at the letters I couldn't bear to read. I tried to find a reason, an explanation for Sarah's behavior, but there was none. I only saw my own foolishness for believing Sarah would always love me as I loved her. I thought about my old house, probably sold by now, just as Sarah wanted, and I had nothing left but my memories and this unending ache. That evening, I stood before the mirror in the small bathroom. I looked at my reflection. The graying hair, the wrinkles, the tired eyes. I asked myself, I gave everything, but what do I have left for myself? I had no answer. I only knew this pain was changing me, bit by bit. I didn't want to continue being the mother who only sacrificed, who only waited for a call from a daughter who had forgotten her. But I didn't know how to stop loving her, even after she had broken me. Perhaps it was just maternal love. I went back to bed, lay down, but sleep wouldn't come. I thought about Rose's words. Sometimes, children don't see the depth of a parent's love. Maybe she was right. Maybe Sarah would never see what I had done, what I had given up for her. But I couldn't just sit here waiting for her to change. I had to do something. And for the first time in my life, I knew I had to think about myself, not for Sarah, not for anyone else. The days passed in a blur of sleeplessness and loss of appetite. One morning, as I sat listlessly in my chair, a nurse knocked. "Mrs. Helen, there's a letter for you," she said, handing me a thick envelope. I was surprised. I never received mail here. The envelope bore the logo of a local real estate company. I opened it. Inside was a notification stating that my old house, the home where my family had lived, had been sold. The letter confirmed the transaction was complete and the funds had been transferred to an account. But I didn't care about the money. What made me freeze was the attached contract, bearing Sarah's signature, where she declared herself my sole representative. I read it over and over, my hand gripping the paper so tightly it crumpled. Sarah had sold the house full of memories, without saying a word to me. I remembered that phone call when she said keeping it was unreasonable. I had thought she was just saying that she would consult me before doing anything. But no. Sarah had once again acted behind my back, as if I had no right to a voice. I sat there, the notification trembling in my hand, the pain sharp and overwhelming. That house wasn't just bricks and mortar. It held all the beautiful memories I had left, and Sarah had sold it without a second thought. A slow burning anger began to simmer inside me, making my chest feel heavy. She hadn't just pushed me into a nursing home, she had taken control of my property. I asked myself, what had I done to make her think she had the right? I sat down, trying to breathe deeply, but my mind was spinning. I thought of Johnny, of our life in that house. I realized I couldn't go on like this. I couldn't let Sarah decide who I was or what I was worth. I had always saved things for my daughter, thinking one day she might need them. But now, I knew I had to let go to save myself. One morning, I sat with Marilyn in the nursing home dining room. She brought me tea as usual, but I didn't drink it. I looked at her, the person who had been beside me through my worst days, and decided to tell her the secret I had kept for 20 years. "Marilyn," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "Could you take me to the county office? There's something I need to take care of." Marilyn looked surprised. "What is it, Mrs. Helen? Is it important?" I didn't answer directly. "Just take me there and you'll see," I said. Marilyn agreed, and that afternoon she drove me to the county office, about 20 minutes away. On the way, I told her about Johnny, about the trust fund he had set up before he died, Johnny knew he didn't have much time left, I said, gazing out the car window. He set up that fund for 2 occasions, when Sarah got married and when I retired. It's a significant amount, enough for Sarah to live comfortably. Marilyn listened intently, her hands tightening on the steering wheel. "You've kept it all these years?" she asked quietly. I nodded. I wanted to honor Johnny's promise. I thought it would be a gift for Sarah when she needed it. But now, after everything Sarah had said, after how she had treated me, I no longer wanted to keep that fund for her. I had given too much, my time, my health, my heart, and received only coldness in return. I told Marilyn, I don't want Sarah to think my love for her is something she's entitled to. I need to do this not for revenge, but to reclaim myself. Marilyn looked at me, her eyes filled with understanding, but also a hint of concern. "Are you sure, Mrs. Helen?" she asked. I nodded, though my heart was pounding. I knew it was a huge decision, but I couldn't continue living as Sarah's shadow. At the county office, I met Mr. Tom, an older employee who had known Johnny. He recognized me immediately, smiling warmly. "Helen, it's been a long time," Tom added. "Johnny told me quite a bit about you. He must have been very proud." His words brought a lump to my throat, but I forced myself to stay composed. I sat down and explained that I wanted to transfer the entire trust fund, half to the nursing home and half to an orphanage in town. Tom was stunned. "Are you absolutely sure, Helen? This is a substantial amount." I looked him straight in the eye. I used to think giving everything to my daughter was the right thing to do. But now, I know there are others who need it more. People who will appreciate it. Marilyn sat beside me, silent, her hand gripping mine under the table, lending me strength. I signed each document, my hand shaking slightly, but my heart felt lighter with every signature. Each stroke of the pen was a step towards letting go of Sarah, letting go of the hope that she would return to the loving daughter she once was. When I signed the last paper, I felt a tremendous weight lift. I looked at Tom. "Thank you," I said. "I feel much lighter now." He nodded, his expression full of respect. On the drive back, Marilyn was quiet, but I knew what she was thinking. "Mrs. Helen," she finally said, "you truly are the strongest person I've ever met." I gave a small, weary smile and shook my head. "No, Marilyn, I don't know if you'd call it strength. I just know I can't let anyone else decide my worth anymore." The decision hadn't been easy. It hurt, like cutting away a piece of my heart, but it was also how I asserted that I was not worthless, that I had the right to live for myself. Back at the home, I sat in my room, looking at the family photo. This time, the pain wasn't as sharp. I still loved Sarah, perhaps I always would, but I was no longer willing to live waiting for her to change. I thought about the residents at the nursing home, the orphans who would benefit from the money. I thought about Johnny, about him calling me strong. "You were right, Johnny," I whispered, touching the photo. "I still have the strength to carry on." Marilyn stopped by after her shift, bringing a cookie she had baked herself. "Consider this a congratulatory gift," she said, smiling. I looked at her, grateful to have her here. Grateful someone saw me as more than just an old woman in a nursing home. I took a bite of the cookie, closed my eyes, and for the first time in months, I felt a sense of peace settle within me. Not because everything was fixed, but because I had chosen to do what was right for myself. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I would not let Sarah, or anyone else, define my value ever again. After that trip to the county office, I felt like a heavy stone had been lifted from my chest. I began to change how I lived at the nursing home. Before, I'd mostly kept to myself, staring at my phone, waiting for a call from Sarah that never came. Now, I decided not to let the pain control me anymore. I started joining the activities, even if initially just to pass the time. Rose and I began tending to some flower beds in the garden. I wasn't much of a gardener, but the feeling of soil on my hands, the smell of fresh grass, made me feel alive, useful. Rose often teased me about my clumsy hands but praised my persistence. "Helen, you do things slowly but surely," she'd say with a hearty laugh. I found myself laughing along. I also grew closer to Frank, an elderly gentleman who always told jokes in the dining hall. He had a habit of telling old-fashioned puns, the kind Johnny used to tell to make me smile. One time, Frank told a particularly silly joke, and I burst out laughing so loudly that everyone turned to look. I felt a bit embarrassed, covering my mouth, but Frank winked. "See, Mrs. Helen? Laughter is the best medicine." In that moment, I realized I hadn't laughed like that in a very long time, perhaps not since before Sarah's call about the nursing home. Marilyn remained my closest confidant. One afternoon, I decided to teach her how to make cookies, the same recipe I used to bake for the kids, right in the small kitchen at the home. We made a mess, flour dusting our hands and the counter. But I felt happy. Marilyn laughed heartily when she burned a batch, and I teased her, "If you were my student back in the day, I'd have sent you home." She pretended to pout, then hugged me. "Mrs. Helen, you're such a positive inspiration," she said. Her words touched me deeply. I was just an old woman trying to find some light in dark days. Despite these positive changes, I still thought about Sarah. Sometimes, looking at the family photo on my table, I wondered what she was doing. If she was happy, I still loved her. I just didn't love her in a way that hurt me anymore. I stopped checking my phone every hour, stopped hoping for an apology text. I had given my whole life for her, and now I wanted to live for myself, even if it was just these simple days in the nursing home. I started integrating more into the life here as a way of healing. I told stories about my factory days, about Johnny and how he always loved and protected me. People enjoyed listening, especially Rose and Frank. Once, I recounted the memory of Sarah repainting the kitchen cabinet with me when she was 10, smearing paint all over the floor. I smiled as I told it, though there was a slight ache in my heart. Rose took my hand. "Children grow up. Sometimes they forget their mother was once their whole world. But you're still the world to us here." Her words moved me. I realized I didn't need Sarah to feel valued. The people here, Rose, Frank, Marilyn, they valued me, cared for me like family. One evening, I sat with Marilyn in the dining room after everyone else had retired. Marilyn took my hand, her gaze warm. "You're doing so well, Mrs. Helen. You're stronger than you think." I wasn't sure if I was strong, but I knew I was trying harder each day. I was no longer the mother who only sacrificed, only waited. I was Helen, an old mother who could still laugh, still plant flowers, still bake cookies, and still do things she enjoyed. And that, however small, was enough to keep me going. That night, lying in bed, I looked at the family photo. I no longer felt the same sharp pain when thinking about Sarah. I thought about Johnny, about the days we dreamed of a happy family. "You see, Johnny," I whispered, "I'm learning to live again." I closed my eyes, and for the first time in months, I slept soundly, without nightmares, without pain. I knew this journey wasn't over, but I had found a place to start again, not with Sarah, but with myself. The days passed, and I felt like I was truly regaining my footing, finding small joys in the nursing home. But even though I tried to live in the present, I knew there was one more thing I needed to do to close the chapter with Sarah. Not for revenge, but to say a final word so I could truly let go. One evening, sitting in my room, I remembered Marilyn showing me Sarah's Instagram post. I realized the wedding was only days away, and I couldn't let it pass without doing something. I didn't want to attend. Didn't want to sit in the back row as she'd demanded. But I needed to send her a message, not to cause her pain, but to speak the truth. I took out a piece of paper and a pen from the drawer. I sat at the table, the dim lamplight falling on the family photo. I began to write, slowly, carefully, as if recounting my entire life. "Sarah, my dear," I started. "I don't know if you'll read this letter, but I need to say things I've held inside for too long. I wrote about raising her alone after Johnny died. I wrote about the joy of watching her grow, and the pain when she pushed me into the nursing home without asking. I wrote about that phone call, when she said I had no value, when she demanded my pension as if it were something I owed her. I didn't blame her. I didn't want her to carry guilt for the rest of her life. I just wanted her to know the truth, that I had loved her more than myself, that I had given everything, and that her words had shattered me. I knew she might become a mother someday, She needed to understand these things. I wrote, "I kept your father's trust fund, thinking one day it would help you find happiness. But now I understand you don't need it, and I no longer wish to keep it for you. I have transferred that money to the nursing home and the orphanage, so it can help those who truly need it." I paused, my hand trembling. Writing those words hurt more than I expected, but finally setting them down felt like a release. I ended the letter with a simple message. "I'm not angry with you, Sarah. I just hope you live well, true to yourself. But from now on, I will keep what belongs to me, my allowance, my pension, and my self-respect. I have nothing left to give." I folded the letter. Then, I took a crisp $2.00 bill from my wallet, an old bill I'd kept for years from when Sarah was little and used to ask for change for candy. I tucked it inside the letter. The $2.00 bill is often seen as a symbol of luck, of pears, of having someone watching over you. I added a final line. "This is my wedding gift to you. I wish you happiness." The wish felt both bitter and sincere. I didn't want to hurt Sarah, but I needed her to understand that her mother wasn't something to be discarded so easily. I sat looking at the letter all night, rereading every line. Each word felt like a piece of my broken heart, but it also felt like I was carefully removing fragments of memory from myself. When I finally sealed the envelope, I felt lighter than I had in ages. I knew this letter would change everything. Would be the final punctuation mark in the story between me and Sarah, the daughter I loved most. But I was ready. I didn't want to live perpetually in pain, waiting for an apology that might never come. The next morning, I called Marilyn to my room. She entered carrying tea as usual, but I didn't drink it. I handed her the letter. "Marilyn, could you do something for me?" I asked. She looked at the envelope, then at me, her eyes filled with concern. "What is it, Mrs. Helen?" I took a deep breath. "I want you to take this letter to Sarah's wedding. Please only give it to her on the wedding day, right as the ceremony is about to begin. Don't say anything to her, just hand her the letter." Marilyn looked stunned, opening her mouth as if to question, then stopping herself. She took my hand. "Are you sure? This letter. I think it will hurt Sarah deeply, make her feel remorseful." I nodded, my voice steady. "I don't want to cause her pain, Marilyn, but she needs to know the truth. I need to close this chapter so I can move on comfortably." Marilyn looked at me, her eyes glistening. She hugged me. "I understand. I'll deliver it personally to Sarah." I didn't respond. I just felt weary but also resolute. I gave her the envelope, and she carefully tucked it into her bag. After Marilyn left, I sat down in my chair. I thought about Sarah, about her wedding day, about the moment she would open that letter. I didn't know how she would react, if she would cry, get angry, or throw it away. But I knew I had done the right thing. The letter wasn't for punishment. It was for me to reclaim myself, to tell Sarah that I was not worthless. I am Helen, a mother, a wife, a woman who has lived and sacrificed, and I deserve respect. I stood up and walked to the window. I whispered to Johnny, as I often did when I needed him. "I've done my part, my love. I feel much more at ease now." I knew something would happen, but I felt I was finally heading in the right direction. What about you? If you were in my shoes, would you have done the same? Leave a heart symbol if you agree. And finally, her wedding day arrived. I didn't leave my room that day. I didn't want to dwell on it. Didn't want to imagine Sarah in her wedding dress, standing beside the man I'd never met. I sat in my chair, holding the cup of tea Marilyn had brought before she left. My little girl was now a bride, starting a new life without me. I wasn't as sad as I might have been before, but my heart still ached. I gave a small, bitter smile, wondering if she would think of me, even for a moment, on her big day. Meanwhile, in the city, Sarah's wedding took place in a lavish ballroom, glittering with chandeliers, filled with guests. I learned all this later, from Marilyn, who recounted every detail. Sarah looked radiant in her white gown, the diamond ring sparkling on her hand, smiling brightly beside her groom. Everything was perfect, just as Sarah had wanted, just like her Instagram post. But as the ceremony was about to begin, Marilyn appeared. She wore a simple dress, blending into the crowd, but her gaze was steady. She walked towards Sarah, who was standing with some friends preparing for the procession. "Sarah?" Marilyn called, her voice calm but clear enough to make Sarah turn. She held out the envelope without saying much. Sarah looked surprised, her hand trembling slightly as she took it. She looked at Marilyn, as if wanting to ask something, but Marilyn simply nodded. "You should read this," she said, then turned and walked away, not waiting for a reaction. Sarah stood there amidst the bustling hall, her eyes fixed on the envelope. Marilyn said. Sarah opened it right there, without hesitation. Her eyes scanned the lines I had written so carefully, and then the $2.00 bill fluttered out, along with the final words. "This is my wedding gift to you. I wish you happiness." As Sarah read, her hands began to shake violently and tears streamed down her face. She collapsed onto a nearby chair, the envelope falling to the floor as guests began to whisper around her. Marilyn, watching from a distance, saw Sarah's breakdown. She walked closer and said just one sentence. "The only person who always quietly stood behind you isn't there anymore." Perhaps those words were the final blow. Sarah broke down completely, sobbing uncontrollably, oblivious to the curious stares, oblivious to the impending ceremony. She clutched the letter, finally realizing the weight of her actions. Perhaps she remembered the times I held her when she cried, the nights I worked myself to exhaustion so she could have a better life. She remembered the kitchen where we painted the cupboard together, baked cookies, and she realized she had thrown it all away, not just me, but the love I had given her. The guests grew restless. The groom approached her, concerned. "Sarah, what's wrong?" But she couldn't answer. She just wept, holding the letter, the $2.00 bill lying silently on the floor, like a reminder of things lost that can never be regained. She looked around wildly, as if wanting to flee, but the dress, the guests, the groom's expectant eyes, everything held her there. Eventually, she stood up, wiped her tears, and forced a smile to continue with the ceremony. She had lost the most valuable thing, not the trust fund, not the money, but the mother who had loved her unconditionally. That was everything Marilyn told me. Meanwhile, back at the nursing home, I knew none of this. I sat alone, thinking about the letter, wondering if Sarah had read it, how she might be feeling. I didn't expect her to change overnight, didn't expect an apology. I just hoped the letter would help her understand, even a little, what I had gone through. I touched the family photo, whispering to Johnny, "I've done all I can, my love. Now it's time for me to let her walk her own path." I didn't cry. I just felt a sense of calm, as if I had finally closed a door I had held open for far too long. That evening I joined Rose and Frank for dinner. Frank told a silly joke and we all laughed together, even though a part of my heart still felt heavy. I knew my journey had gained a little more strength to continue. I didn't know what Sarah would do after reading the letter, but I knew one thing. I had spoken my final word, and I had reclaimed my self-respect. I truly felt I had said everything that needed to be said. A few days after the wedding, I was sitting in my room, reading a book Marilyn had given me, when she knocked. "Mrs. Helen, there's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice hesitant. I put the book down and looked at her. "What is it, Marilyn?" She sat down, took a deep breath, and told me that Sarah had come to the home that morning, right after the wedding festivities ended. She had driven straight from the city, her eyes swollen, her face pale from crying. "She begged to see you," Marilyn said. "She said she was wrong, that she wanted to apologize, just once." My heart sank. I thought I was prepared for this moment, but hearing Marilyn's words, I just felt weary. I loved Sarah, but that love wasn't enough to erase the wounds she had inflicted. "Marilyn," I said, my voice steady, "tell Sarah now is not the time. I'm not ready to face her yet. I need time, and I think she does too." Marilyn looked at me with deep sympathy. "Are you sure, Mrs. Helen?" She seemed genuinely remorseful. I nodded, though my heart ached. "Forgiveness isn't granted with a simple apology, Marilyn. It's a long journey." Marilyn squeezed my hand, saying nothing more. She stood up, promised to relay my message, and left. I sat there, wondering if I had done the right thing. As a mother, I didn't want to cause Sarah pain, but I couldn't bring myself to open that door again, afraid of being hurt once more. It had taken me so long to overcome the initial devastation. Later, Marilyn told me Sarah had cried when she heard my message. She stood outside the nursing home gates, burying her face in her hands, sobbing to Marilyn, "I was wrong, Marilyn. I pushed Mom out of my life and now I've truly lost her." Marilyn simply shook her head. "She needs time, Sarah, and you need time too, to reflect on what you've done and try to learn how to make amends." Sarah nodded, wiped her tears, got in her car, and drove away. I didn't witness the scene, but hearing about it filled me with a pang of sorrow. I couldn't pretend it hadn't happened. In the following days, I focused on creating my own simple joys, small things that helped me forget, even partially, those bitter words. I joined the art class at the home, an idea from Rose to keep the mind busy. I wasn't talented, but I enjoyed the feel of the brush, watching colors spread on paper. I painted a picture from memory of my old kitchen, where Sarah and I used to bake cookies. When Rose praised it, I just smiled. "Just memories," I said. But I knew I was learning to live with memories without letting them drag me down. I grew closer to the people in the home. We had become like a family. Rose often dragged me out to the garden, always encouraging me, telling me my flowers were now the prettiest. And Marilyn? She remained the warm, gentle presence who had appeared to heal the worst days of my life. She stayed longer now, sharing more, the distance between us gone. Her stories reminded me that I had lived a full life, perfect in its imperfections. One evening, I sat outside with Rose, watching the sunset. She asked about Sarah, the first time since I'd arrived. "Are you planning to see her?" she asked gently. I thought for a moment. Someday, perhaps, but not now. I need to find Helen first, not just Sarah's mother. Rose nodded, taking my hand. She said nothing, but her warm grip spoke volumes. I smiled, feeling a quiet happiness. I wasn't sure if I was strong, but I knew I was stepping into a new life. I returned to my room and looked at the family photo. I still thought about Sarah sometimes, about her pain reading the letter, about her visit. I hoped she would learn something, live better, but that was her journey now, one without me beside her. I touched the photo, whispering to Johnny, "I'm okay, my love. I'm finding myself again." I lay down and quickly fell asleep, free from the insomnia and restless nights that had plagued me before. I knew I had chosen correctly, not to punish Sarah, but to protect my self-respect and live out my remaining years with dignity. I felt I had truly closed a part of the past. I would always love Sarah, no matter how much she had broken me, but I had realized I needed to live for myself, not for old expectations or pain. Those small joys, along with the family photo on my table, reminded me that I still had a life worth living, even without my immediate family beside me. One morning, I was sitting in my room, working on a new painting, when Marilyn knocked and entered, holding a piece of paper. "Mrs. Helen, the county office sent a letter. They want to honor you for your donation to the home and the orphanage," she said, her voice excited. I was surprised, unsure what she meant. Marilyn took me down to the administration office, where a staff member handed me the phone. It was Mr. Tom. "Helen, I have wonderful news. The town wants to honor you for your contribution to the nursing home and the children's organization." I was stunned, clutching the receiver. "Honor me? For what?" I asked. Mr. Tom chuckled. "Helen, you have no idea. That money has transformed this place. The residents have a new dining room, and the children have warm blankets and books for school. Not everyone would do something like that. You deserve to be honored." I didn't know what to say. I had only done what I felt was right, never expecting attention. I thanked him and hung up, feeling bewildered. I had never seen myself as special, just an old woman trying to regain her dignity after what Sarah had done. When I told Marilyn, she hugged me tightly. "You see, Mrs. Helen, you've changed so many lives." Rose and Frank were just as thrilled when they heard the news. Frank teased, "Mrs. Helen, you're famous now. Don't forget to sign an autograph for me." I laughed and shook my head, but deep down, I felt a flicker of pride. Not for the recognition, but because I knew Johnny would be smiling if he were here. A few days later, the nursing home decided to hold a small party to celebrate me and honor all the residents. Marilyn and the other nurses decorated the dining room with balloons and blue tablecloths, Johnny's favorite color. Rose and Frank helped hang a banner that read, "Thank you, Mrs. Helen, and all our wonderful residents." I felt embarrassed, telling them not to make a fuss, but Rose took my hand. "Helen, you deserve this. We all deserve to feel cherished." The party was warm and cozy. There were the cookies Marilyn and I had baked, hot tea, and even a small cake. Everyone gathered around the tables, chatting and laughing. Frank told a joke that made the whole room roar. Rose stood up and said a few words. "Helen has shown us that no matter our age, we can still make a difference." I blushed, unused to praise, but looking around at everyone's faces, I felt I truly belonged here. When it was my turn, Marilyn nudged me to speak. I stood up, my hands trembling slightly. "I'm not very good at speeches," I began, "but I want to thank everyone. You, Rose, Frank, Marilyn, you gave me a new family when I thought I had lost everything. I've learned that my value doesn't lie in what I give away, but in living true to myself." I paused, glancing at the family photo I'd brought and placed on a corner table. "And I want to say to all of you, never think you aren't important. We all have value, as long as we believe it." Everyone applauded. Marilyn hugged me, her eyes shining. I sat down, my heart warm. I thought about Sarah, the letter, her visit. I didn't know what she was doing, if she was truly remorseful, but I hoped she would find her way, just as I was finding mine. I wasn't angry with Sarah anymore, but I wasn't ready to open my heart completely either. Forgiveness is a journey, as I'd told Marilyn, and I was still walking it. Rose had brought out an old ukulele. When the melody of "You Are My Sunshine" filled the room, I almost cried. It was the song Johnny used to hum whenever I was upset. Everyone sang along, voices uneven but full of emotion. I closed my eyes, smiled, and felt a true sense of peace. I thought of Johnny, of the days we dreamed of a happy family. "I did it, my love," I whispered in my heart. "I found myself again." That night, lying in bed, I looked at the family photo. I no longer felt pain when thinking about Sarah. I knew I had given everything for her, but now I held on to the most important things, my self-respect and the joy of living. I slept soundly, dreaming of my old kitchen, of Johnny's laughter, and of the days ahead. Days I would live not for anyone else, but for myself. After the party at the nursing home, I felt reborn. Being honored for donating Johnny's trust fund wasn't just a surprise, it was an affirmation. I continued my simple days at the home, learning to live in the present, holding on to my dignity, and finding joy in small things. But I never expected the door to the past to creak open again when Sarah returned. One afternoon, I was sitting outside with Rose, watering the flowers we'd planted, when Marilyn hurried over, looking stressed. "Mrs. Helen," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Sarah is here. She wants to see you." I stopped watering, my hand tightening on the can, my heart pounding. Sarah had come once before, right after reading my letter at her wedding, but I had refused to see her, not ready. I thought she wouldn't come back. But here she was again, and I didn't know how to handle it. "What did you tell her?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Marilyn looked at me, her eyes full of worry. "I told her she could wait in the sitting room, but that I had to ask if you were willing to see her." I nodded, put the watering can down, and wiped my hands on my apron. Rose squeezed my hand gently. "Helen, do what feels right for you. Don't push yourself." I smiled gratefully at her, but my mind was in turmoil. Could I face her? I walked into the nursing home's small sitting room, furnished with old armchairs and faded paintings. Sarah sat there, dressed in a simple sweater. Gone was the glamorous, defiant look from the wedding photos. Her eyes were puffy, her hair loosely tied back, and she clutched a bag tightly in her lap. When she saw me, she stood up, her hands tightening on the bag strap as if trying to keep calm. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and the first words that tumbled out were just, "Mom, before she choked up. I stopped a few steps away, saying nothing. I looked at her, the daughter I had held as she slept, the one I had sacrificed my life for. and I saw a different Sarah. Not the cold voice on the phone, but someone clearly in pain. "Sit down," I said, my voice even, and took the chair opposite her. Sarah sat, her eyes never leaving mine. "Mom, I'm so sorry," she began, her voice thick with emotion. "I was wrong. I read your letter and I can't forgive myself." She bowed her head, tears falling onto her hands. "I pushed you away, said terrible things that hurt you. I don't deserve to be your daughter." I listened, my heart aching. I remembered the letter, the lines I had poured my pain into. Hearing Sarah's apology, I wanted to hold her, to tell her everything would be all right. But I couldn't, not because I was still angry, but because I knew forgiveness wasn't that simple. "Sarah," I said slowly, "listen to me. What you said, what you did, hurt me deeply. I need time." Sarah looked up, her eyes pleading. "I know, Mom. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just want you to know how sorry I am. I lied to my husband's family, told them you and Dad had passed away because I was ashamed. But after reading your letter, I realized I'm more ashamed of myself." She paused, wiping her tears. "I lost you, Mom, and it's my fault." Her words choked me up. I thought about the days I cried because of her. I wanted to believe she was truly remorseful, but I was also afraid. "Sarah," I said, "I'm not angry with you. I never really was. But I've learned that I have to live for myself now, not just for you. I need you to respect that." Sarah nodded, crying harder. "I understand, Mom. I'll wait however long it takes. I just want you to know I love you and I'll try to make things right." She took a small picture frame from her bag. It wasn't a new photo, but the old family picture that used to hang in our living room. "I brought this from the old house," she said softly. "I'll remember everything you did for me." I looked at the frame, my heart tightening. I didn't hug Sarah, didn't say I forgave her, but I reached out and gently touched her hand. "Thank you," I said. "Now, you should go and live well." Sarah nodded, stood up, and walked away. After Sarah left, Marilyn found me. "Are you okay, Mrs. Helen?" she asked. I managed a small smile and nodded. "I'm okay, Marilyn." I gave her a chance, and I gave myself one too. I went back to my room and looked at the family photo. I thought about Johnny, about our dreams of a happy family. "You see, Johnny," I whispered, "I did it." I knew the journey with Sarah would be long, but I was ready. I wanted to live fully, with the self-respect and joy I had reclaimed. Perhaps you were once a mother like me, giving everything, only to wonder what was left for yourself. Or maybe you're a busy son or daughter, tired, and somewhere along the way, you've forgotten the one who held your hand through your earliest years. If this story touched you, please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts, and let me know which country you're watching from. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in the next video.